You know, this whole thing started as just kind of a random idea. I didn't plan on some big event or to do a challenge. I just thought it'd be fun to do something special for October, you know, since most of the channel already leans pretty heavily into horror. It just kind of made sense to me. One random horror game a night for 31 nights in a row. The idea is simple enough. It turns out it wasn't as simple as I thought it'd be. Streaming every single day has been exhausting, and I've got a brand new level of respect for the people who do this full time, because going into the second week, I was barely running on fumes. But the thing with it is people kept showing up. Not just new faces, but the same people. Night after night, just hanging out with me, talking and turning what started as a random idea into something that felt like a live, real community. And now here by the end of the month, the Discord has been busier than it's ever been. I've got to work on thumbnails every single day, and it honestly felt like this little world I've been building is starting to come alive. And this wasn't about views or growth, it wasn't some growth idea. I just wanted to do something special, and in the process, it reminded me why I started doing all this in the first place. Because when you do something every single night for a month, it stops feeling like a project and starts becoming part of your day, your habit, part of your rhythm. And by the end of all this, I wasn't just playing horror games anymore. I was playing them with you. So in this video, I'm going to go through every single one of those games, doing little mini what was segments for each game. Just a short look at what the game was, what they meant, and why they stood out to me. You know, Siren might be one of the strangest horror games I've ever played. It came out in 2003 on the PS2, and it was made by Sony's Japan studio. The same team led by Keiichiro Toyama, the guy who had directed the first Silent Hill. And honestly, it makes perfect sense, because as soon as you load this game up, you can feel that same feeling of Silent Hill. It takes place in this remote Japanese village called Hanuda, where one night a siren goes off, and everything just collapses into hell. The whole town sinks into this red ocean. The people turn into these undead things called chibitos. And they just keep walking around like nothing happened. Praying, talking, carrying on with their day-to-day jobs. But they're not there. You play as different survivors, 10 in total, all trying to escape or just understand what's happening. And the story with them jumps around between timelines and characters. It's really confusing, but in a way that kind of works for it, I feel. You, the player, are just as lost as the people you're controlling. And what really makes Siren stand out is a mechanic. It's called sight jacking. It lets you literally tune in to what an enemy sees, like you're twisting a radio dial until you're locked into the enemy's frequency. And once you've got the signal dialed in, you can peek through their eyes, hear what they hear, and figure out if they're about to walk right up on you. It's super suspenseful, and when you're crouched behind a wall watching through a Shibito's eyes, watching it slowly walk towards you, it's hard not to tense up. And the game itself is brutal. You can't kill enemies, they just always get back up, even if you shoot them. So everything you do feels temporary, and between the slow pace, the weird movement, and how unforgiving it is, I'd easily call this one of the hardest games I've played all year, if not the hardest. But somehow, that difficulty kind of adds to the atmosphere. You're not supposed to feel in control here. You're supposed to feel helpless, confused, and completely out of your depth. And Siren really nails that. Jesus. I told him to come at this morning. Well, that worked well. It even looks super unsettling. Instead of normal facial animations, they used real photos of actors' faces and mapped them onto the models. So everyone looks real, but completely wrong. They're uncomfortable to look at. And I feel like that's exactly the point, though. Even though I only played the early part of this game on stream, Siren really stuck with me. It's strange, frustrating, and really unlike anything else I've touched this month. And it's one I'm super excited to get back to eventually for a full breakdown. Not sure.
It is Arco. Where is everyone?
Oh no, it's the priest. I don't like the priest. So Eternal Darkness is one of those games that really shouldn't have worked, but it does somehow. It came out in 2002 on the GameCube, and was developed by Silicon Knights and published by Nintendo, which already feels strange to say in some way. A first-party Nintendo horror game that opens with a murder, jumps through thousands of years, and ends with ancient gods tearing reality apart. That's not exactly a Luigi's Mansion. But the story kicks off with Alexandra Roivas. She's investigating her grandpa's death inside this massive Rhode Island mansion. And pretty quickly, she finds this book that's bound in human skin, the Tome of Eternal Darkness. She starts reading the stories of everyone who's ever come across it. That's the hook for the game. Every chapter throws you into a different person's life, in a different time period, all connected by this cursed book. You go from a Roman centurion to a monk to a Persian messenger, each one discovering the same Lovecraftian horror from a different angle. It's like a playable horror anthology, and somehow it all really ties together. But what really makes Eternal Darkness stand out is the sanity system. Every time you see something horrifying, your sanity drains, and the game starts to mess with you. It's not just your character, but you, the player. You'll hear disembodied voices crying or whispering, you see blood dripping from the walls, or find yourself sinking to the floor like the game's glitching out. And when your meter gets really, really low, the fourth wall starts to break completely. Your TV volume drops, like literally you'll see the TV volume show up on the screen and lower. The screen pretends to change channels. Or the game will even act like it's paused itself and deletes your save files. And even when you know it's coming, it still gets you. One of the big things though is just how good the audio design is. When your sanity drops and you start hearing those screams, the crying or whispers, it sounds really good. And after a while it gets under your skin a little bit. Oh no. Oh, turn the TV off. It's not a game that scares you outright though, it's just one you appreciate. The atmosphere, writing, the way it channels that slow, creeping sense of Lovecraftian horror. It's creative and super weird, and it's unlike anything else out there. Even after all these years, no other game has really captured that feeling of Eternal Darkness. It's one of those experiences that reminds you just how far the genre can stretch when it's not afraid to mess with the player's mind.
Trying to save him, Anthony. His fate is decided.
House of the Dead 2 is just one of those games that never gets old. It originally hit arcades back in '98 before getting ported to the Dreamcast in '99. It's about as classic Sega as it gets.
Thanks. You can get outside that way.
It was developed by Sega's AM1 team, and it's just a straight-up light gun shooter. And one of the most iconic arcade horror experiences ever made. For me, it's just pure nostalgia. I used to play it every weekend at my grandma's house, just sitting in front of the TV, seeing how far I could get every run. Then I would die and just restart the whole process, and I would sit there for hours doing that. But coming back to it now, it still hits the same. The shooting is addicting, the enemies are cool, and even the bad voice acting, it just adds the charm. It's got the perfect mix of early Sega weirdness and actual horror atmosphere. I played it this time with a controller, but that's about to change soon. I actually ordered my very first piece of hardware for the channel. It's a pretty high quality light gun with actual recoil and that works on LCD screens. So soon we'll be playing rail shooters the right way on stream, and I absolutely cannot wait. But what makes House of the Dead 2 so fun is just how much replay value it packs into something so simple. There's branching paths that change depending on who you save or what you shoot. So no two runs really feel the exact same until you play it 100 times. And for a game that's over 2 decades old, it still has moments that get your heart going. Like being chased through a coliseum with a chainsaw. It's silly, but it still has this constant tension under all the chaos. The creature designs are super cool too. Some are creepy and some are really goofy, but that balance is part of what makes it special. There's something about just shooting through waves of zombies and that over-the-top soundtrack behind you. It's comfort food horror. In House of the Dead 2, it might be simple, but it's a classic for a reason. It's fast and fun and still holds up a lot better than most of the games that tried to do the same thing later. Rail shooters will always have a special place in my heart. Especially this one. The Splatterhouse games are the kind of horror that could only have come out in the early 90s. They're dark and extremely violent and more graphic than anything you'd expect from the Sega Genesis. Splatterhouse 2 came out in '92, followed by 3 a year later. both from Namco, and even though they share a name, there might as well be completely different games. Splatterhouse 2 is a side-scrolling action horror game. You play as Rick, the big muscly man wearing a Jason Voorhees mask. Well, and a terror mask from the game side, but it's Jason Voorhees. He's trying to rescue his girlfriend Jennifer from the horrors inside the mansion. Enemies go down in about 1 or 2 hits, but so do you, which makes every fight extremely tense. You have to learn patterns, watch for openings, and figure out when to attack or jump or try to dodge. It's the kind of game that punishes every mistake, but in that satisfying way that makes you want to try it again. And honestly, it really reminds me a little of Dark Souls. It's all about patience and timing and learning patterns. And the tone is extremely brutal. The game is just pure grim horror. You're hitting monsters with 2x4s and watching them splatter against walls, or fighting this boss that's literally hanging demon babies from an umbilical cord. It's crazy. It's disturbing stuff, but it's super creative, and it really pushes how far they could go back on 16-bit hardware. Oh, I think we got him. Oh, we got him. We got him. Then there's Splatterhouse 3. It's the same world, same characters, but a totally different feel. This one plays more like a beat-em-up. It's faster, more open rooms, there's time limits, multiple endings. It's still tough, but it's not the same pattern-learning way. To give it a more modern comparison, if Splatterhouse 2 feels like Dark Souls, then 3 feels more like God of War or Devil May Cry. It trades tension for speed. It's fun, but a little less of that oh crap horror edge that made the 2 special to me. What really surprised me is just how graphic the games are. For the Sega Genesis, this stuff is pretty wild, and that shock factor still lands today. They're extremely gory, unapologetic, and just full of personality. And honestly, when people talk about old school horror, I think this era gets overlooked quite a bit. Everyone mentions Castlevania, but Splatterhouse deserves to be right there with it. These games are relics, but they're also staples. They're brutal little snapshots of what horror looked like when developers were still figuring out how far they could push it. There we go. We figured it out, chat. We figured it out. It's just me being dumb and setting things up wrong a long time ago. Zombies Ate My Neighbors might be one of the most charming horror games probably ever made. It came out in '93 for the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis, and it was developed by LucasArts and published by Konami. It's basically what happens when you hand a bunch of monster movie fans a 16-bit console and say, make something fun. You play as Zeke and Julie. They're running around the suburban neighborhoods, malls, castles, pyramids, saving your neighbors from every horror cliche imaginable. Zombies, werewolves, killer dolls, giant ants, giant babies. If it showed up in an old B-movie, it's probably in here somewhere. It's super goofy and really colorful and just full of personality. But underneath all that, you can tell this was made by people who really loved horror. It's less of a parody and more like a love letter to every midnight monster flick that ever came before it. The first thing that really hit me with jumping back into it was the soundtrack. It's one of those soundtracks that just instantly takes you back. We need to go up here. Oh yeah, we gotta get the pool guy. Like muscle memory from being a kid playing the cartridge again. That upbeat, spooky tone, it perfectly matches the game. I played it solo, just like I did back then, and it still really holds up. And co-op probably makes it better, but even on your own, it's one of the most fun, fast-paced horror games you can play. There's something just super addicting about running around trying to save every last neighbor and juggling a dozen weird weapons. There's water guns, weed whackers, cans of pop, bazookas, popsicles. It's ridiculous, but it never gets old. I made it up to level 20 on the stream, and even that far in, I was still seeing new enemies and environments. That's what makes it so impressive. There's 48 levels in total, and somehow it stays fresh all the way through them. That kind of creativity is extremely rare. I mean, even for now it is, probably more so now. It's fun and fast-paced and frantic. It's just filled with love for the horror genre. And Zombies Ate My Neighbors might not be scary, but it's one of the most genuine tributes to horror ever made. And it's one that still feels just as good today as it did back then. Oh, werewolf killed that person. Werewolf's about to kill me. If you're new here, I'm Jake, and I run Jake's Save Room. I like to dive deep into the history, context, and legacy of games that not a lot of people talk about anymore. And this video is just a very small part of that bigger vault. So if you love seeing these old games, old horror games, or just games that don't get much love anymore, consider subbing. I have a lot on the channel already, almost 50 videos now I think, and I have a lot more coming. But enough of that, let's get into day 6. I hate these guys are horrible. Nightmare Creatures is one of those games that makes you wonder how it isn't talked about more. It came out in '97 on the PlayStation and PC, and later on the N64. It's this dark, gothic horror action game set in the 1800s of London, where this cult called the Brotherhood of Hakat, they unleash monsters across the city. You play as either Ignatius or Nadia, and your goal is pretty simple. It's just stop the nightmare before it consumes everything. But right away, the design for this game, it really connects with me. The monsters look pretty awesome for their time. All the twisted limbs and exaggerated proportions, just the designs in general are super cool. And then the foggy London backdrops, it gives the whole game this heavy, eerie tone. The controls do take a little getting used to, but once you figure them out, the combat becomes the star of the show. It's very clunky, but in my opinion in a good way. Like an early version of Bloodborne, you're learning attack patterns, figuring out which combo works on which enemies, and watching for those tiny openings to dodge or counter. Every combo string kinda has its own rhythm. Some fast and risky, others are slow and safe, and finding the right one for each enemy feels surprisingly deep for a PS1 game. And then there's the adrenaline system, which I know a lot of people didn't really like, but I actually like it a lot. It has a real sense of urgency. If you stop fighting for too long, your health starts to drain. So you're always on the move, hunting for the next monster to fight. It ties into the story too. It's something about the antidote that keeps the main characters from mutating into monsters, so you have to keep it full. It's not just a gameplay gimmick, it's part of the lore. The atmosphere is fantastic. It's dark, the foggy streets and forests. It's definitely not really scary anymore, but it has this awesome tone to it all. The whole design and themes of the whole game, it just really connects with me. It feels like a lost cousin to Bloodborne, years before FromSoft made this style mainstream. And what makes Nightmare Creatures really stand out to me is the combat depth. It's not just a mindless hack and slash. It expects you to learn, to adapt, and to really understand how enemies move. And I think that's pretty rare for a game from '97. It's very rough around the edges, but the ambition is wild. And when it clicks, it's incredibly satisfying.
I was literally right there up on his face. Jesus.
It is often without considering the cost. Nothing is free, not even revenge.
Blood Omen Legacy of Kain, it feels really ahead of its time. It was released in '96 for the PlayStation, and it's this dark, gothic action adventure from Silicon Knights and Crystal Dynamics. And it's probably one of the most ambitious horror fantasy games of that time. It takes place in the land of Nosgoth, where you play as Kain. He's a nobleman that was murdered and resurrected as a vampire. Then he sets off for revenge and ends up wrapped in this tangled web of curses, gods, and fate. One of the first things that really hit me though is the tone. Again, tone's a big thing that hits me first. It's super gruesome. It's a lot darker than most games from the mid-90s. There's almost constantly blood flowing somewhere on the screen. The writing is pretty sharp and brooding, and every part of the world just feels cursed. Even today, it has this heavy, oppressive mood that really just works for it. And then playing as Kain is just awesome. The voice acting might show its age a little some here and there, but for the time, it's pretty great. Simon Templeman's delivery gives Kain this cold, commanding presence.
Magical light can have many uses indeed.
Like you're really stepping into the role of a vampire lord. You don't feel like a survivor or a victim, you really feel powerful here. And then gameplay-wise, it's surprisingly deep. It's top-down, but it's filled with mechanics that were way ahead of what most games were doing back then. Feeding on enemies to restore health, casting spells, shape-shifting into wolves, bats, and mists to explore hidden areas. It took me a minute to get used to how the spells work, but once I did, it's super satisfying and fun. And then the sheer amount of abilities and transformations and items, it gives it a depth you really wouldn't expect from a game from '96. And then there's the lore, the Circle of Nine, the Cursed Pillars of Nosgoth, the moral choices. It's the kind of story that really sticks with you, and even though I don't know a whole lot more about the rest of the series, it really made me want to dive deeper into the world and really see where it all leads. What stands out the most about Blood Omen though is just how big it feels. The tone, the writing, ambition, it all points towards a game that was trying to do something bigger. It's not perfect, but it's deep and it's rich and shockingly bold for its time. It's the kind of game that really reminds you just how far ahead some developers were thinking in the '90s, and how much of modern dark fantasy still owes to what they really built here.
Crushing bones and rupturing organs till the pressure inside bursts the sack of fleshy skin, spraying its contents for all to see.
Nice.
Witches, don't you? What do you think they do with you when there's no one left to burn?
Clive Barker's Jericho is one of those games that really feels like it could have only existed in the mid-2000s. It was made by Mercury Stream, and it was published by Codemasters, and it came out in 2007 for PS3, 360, and PC. It was right in that era where everything looked desaturated and gritty and kind of had that filter over it. But for this, it kind of fits, because this is pure, unapologetic Clive Barker. It's full of body horror, flesh-stitched monsters, and a lot of religious symbolism. You play as the Jericho Squad. They're a team of soldiers with supernatural powers sent into an ancient city of Akali to stop the Firstborn, basically God's first experiment gone wrong. The setup sounds crazy, because it is, but you're moving through different layers of time, from modern day to crusades, fighting cults, demons, and abominations that look like they were sculpted out of nightmares. One of the big things that really hit me with this game is the design, though. The enemies look awesome. Everything about the game screams Barker. From the gore to the creature concepts, the ultra-morbid, fleshy horror, I've always loved it. And once the squad mechanics kick in, it gets pretty interesting. Each character has their own power. One uses blood magic to trap enemies, another's a sniper, another can control time, and you can swap between them on the fly. It's a bit clunky sometimes, but when it really clicks with you, it's really fun. You can literally possess a character, set up a blood snare, then swap to another one to pick off the targets with a sniper. And the best part is the story actually explains why you can swap characters like this. Your original character dies early on, and he begins possessing the rest of them. So technically, you're still one soul. You're just moving between bodies. As far as story goes, it's kind of interesting, but definitely takes a backseat to the action, in my opinion. The lore around the Firstborn and the layers of time is cool, but the real hook here is the gameplay and the atmosphere. Every inch of Jericho just oozes that mid-2000s energy. It's the kind of game where you can pause it for 2 seconds and immediately know what generation it came from. It's not perfect by any means. The combat gets repetitive, and the level design's pretty linear. But it has a really cool style and a bit of ambition, and a lot of personality. If you're a fan of Clive Barker's brand of grotesque imagination, or just miss that specific flavor of the 360 or PS3 era, Jericho is absolutely worth revisiting. It's definitely not a masterpiece, but it's one hell of a forgotten experiment that deserves a lot more attention than it gets. Nope. Phasmophobia is one of my favorite games ever. I have almost 500 hours in it, and it still just doesn't get stale. It was developed by Kinetic Games and first released in early access back in 2020. But it's grown into one of the most detailed ghost hunting sims ever made. You and up to 3 friends step into a haunted house, a school, or a prison, and you're armed with nothing but cameras, EMF readers, thermostats, and your voice, trying to figure out exactly what kind of ghost you're dealing with before it finds you. What makes it so special is just how deep it goes. Most people see the 3 pieces of evidence. You can get EMF, fingerprints, freezing temperatures, and think that's about it. But once you really get into it, you start learning the subtle tells that separate one ghost from another. How they walk, how they interact with objects, even the specific sound something makes when it hits the floor can tell you what room the ghost is in. There's no menu or chart that gives you that info. It's all learned through memory and experience. It's super easy to learn the evidences, but it's incredibly hard to master the other skills, with the ghost tells or the sounds, the walking speed. It takes a lot of time. Like I said, I put 500 hours into this game, and even now, some things still surprise me and I'm still learning. When a ghost starts hunting right in front of you, or when you're in your hiding spot listening to the footsteps get closer. And the wild thing is, even the footsteps matter. Different ghosts have different walking speeds. And if you're paying attention, that's another clue that can lead you to your answer of what ghost is in the house. I usually play solo or with my wife, and honestly that's the sweet spot for me. I feel like 4 players, at least for me, would get too chaotic, and I really get into the systems of the game, so I would probably annoy other people if I played it with them. But what keeps me coming back to it is just the updates and the new maps and the core loop. Leveling up, prestiging, unlocking new gear, and just doing it all over again. There's always something to refine, something to get faster or smarter at. It scratches that perfect balance of investigating and dread. At this point, Phasmophobia isn't just one of the best modern horror games, it's one of the smartest, in my opinion. It rewards memory and intuition and patience. And when everything clicks into place with your memory, when you can call out the ghost type in 30 seconds just because of the behavior it did, it's the most satisfying feeling.
Fun trick, everyone, if you did not know. If this activity chart jumps up by 4 in one go, outside of a ghost event or a hunt, that means EMF 5. If it bleeds, we can kill it. If it bleeds, we can kill it.
Alien vs. Predator is one of those games that immediately reminds you just how far ahead some developers were thinking. Originally, it was released by Rebellion in 1999, and then later re-released on modern PCs. It lets you play 3 completely different campaigns: Marine, Alien, and Predator.
Alright, it's dead.
Each with its own mechanics, weapons, and pacing. And that's insane, because even today, very few games try something that ambitious. I started with the Marine campaign right away. It's extremely fast, a lot faster than I was expecting. The lighting instantly stood out to me. It was amazing. That's something I just kept pointing out during the stream. Just how good the light and shadows looked for a game this old. It's the kind of dark, flickering atmosphere that still feels really tense today, and it added a lot to the experience. Playing as the Marine is pure panic. You got the motion tracker beeping all around you, picking up multiple signals, and you have no idea where they're coming from. And when that thing starts going off, it creates this immediate oh crap feeling. It was a perfect blend of tension and adrenaline that still jump scared me a few times, even after playing so many horror games. Visually, it really has that early PC charm though. It's aged a lot, but it still has a distinct look that works for the setting. The level design though, it can get a little confusing. There were a lot of moments where I had no idea where to go next. I was just wandering through corridors until I stumbled onto the right path. It's a product of its time. It's not bad, it's just a bit opaque. Even though I only played the Marine side, you can tell how ambitious this game is. 3 full campaigns with totally different playstyles in one package. That's impressive even by today's standards. It's one of those projects that feels like it was built by people swinging for the fences. But what really stuck with me was the atmosphere and the speed of the combat. It's frantic, but it seems focused. This perfect mix of sci-fi tension and pure shooter chaos. AVP might be dated, but it's still fast, fun, and really intense.
Oh my god, there's acid everywhere. Oh, I don't want to do that. Yep, I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. I knew it was you. Oh god, they both are?
The Thing from 2002 might be one of the coolest examples of a licensed game actually understanding its source material. It's a direct sequel to John Carpenter's The Thing, my favorite film of all time, which is also a remake if you didn't know that. It picks up right where the movie left off. You play as Captain Blake, leading a rescue team sent to Outpost 31 to find out what happened. And from the moment you step into those frozen ruins, it just feels right. The isolation, the dread, the paranoia, it's all there carried over from the movie. What really pulled me in were the squad mechanics. You're managing trust, fear, anxiety, sanity levels in your team. And it directly ties into the themes of the movie. Keeping your squad calm and maintaining their faith in you becomes a kind of psychological game on its own. They panic, they doubt you. And if their trust drops too low, they'll stop following orders, or worse, they could attack you. It's such a smart way to capture that slow burn tension the film was built on. The blood testing system is here too, and it's really cool in concept, even if it doesn't always work perfectly. On the stream, I had this moment where I tested a teammate, they were clean, and then just seconds later, they transformed into a thing because I hit a boss trigger. That showed me that some of the transformations were scripted, which broke the illusion a little bit for me. But I still think the idea is really cool. The paranoia of not knowing who to trust, it really makes every encounter feel tense. As far as gameplay goes, it's definitely a product of its time. The combat can be clunky, the swapping items isn't exactly smooth, but once you get used to it, it's still fun. And you can't just shoot enemies to death, you have to weaken them, and then burn them to finish the job. It's such a simple mechanic, but it's the perfect nod to the movie. It reinforces that same, you can't trust what you're looking at mentality that made the original so great. The atmosphere absolutely nails it. You really feel isolated out there, never fully sure if the person next to you is still human. That alone keeps the tension pretty high, even during the slower moments. But more than anything, The Thing feels like a true love letter to the movie. Flaws and all. It captures the spirit of what made Carpenter's original so iconic, and even now, it stands as one of the few horror games that truly gets what paranoia feels like. It's clunky, but it's clever, it's creepy, and totally worth revisiting if you're a fan of the film.
The games I pick are mostly, it's like a mix of if I want to play it. And oh shit, that. Oh.
F.E.A.R 2 is one of those sequels that really didn't have to reinvent the wheel. It just had to keep up with that same mix of awesome gunplay and psychological horror that made the first one so amazing. And honestly, it still holds up a bit. The shooting still feels really good, every weapon has weight to it, every impact feels really heavy, and the reflex slow-mo system is still one of the best ever made. It's that moment where time slows down and you're shooting in the Matrix essentially. You don't even have to be good at shooters for it to make you feel cool. It just hits that perfect balance between action and control that most modern games don't replicate very often. But even with all the chaos around that, F.E.A.R 2 never lets you forget what it actually is, a horror game. The gunfights are really fast and loud, but then it'll all just stop. The lighting changes, something shifts, and you realize you're not alone. Alma shows up. Maybe as an adult, maybe as a little girl, and suddenly that confidence you had a few seconds ago is completely gone. The way she appears, just standing there and watching, or flickering out of sight right as you move toward her. It's genuinely unsettling, and somehow that little girl version of her is still the scariest in my opinion. There's just something about how quiet and innocent she looks, while she just stands there and stares at you. I didn't end up finishing this on stream, but even from what I played of it, it's clear how much effort went into building Alma's story. It's equally tragic and disturbing, and it gives all the gunplay some emotional weight to it. It's not just a fight the monster, it's more like you're uncovering the consequences of everything that happened in the first game. Like you're walking through the aftermath of trauma that never really went away. And it's wild to remember just how big F.E.A.R was back then. The first game was a massive hit. It already had the hype, the name, and the perfect elevator pitch. A slick shooter with bullet time combat and a ghost girl stalking you. F.E.A.R 2 didn't need to fight for attention, it already had it. And even if it's a little rough around the edges now, it's still a great example of how well that mid-2000s era blended cinematic action with actual horror.
Put your heart into it. Put your heart into it and try to make each video a little bit better than last, and you'll get there. You got wrenched, boy. We need to research those things.
System Shock 2 might be one of the smartest horror games ever made. It's not just scary because of monsters or jump scares, it's scary because of how empty everything is. You wake up alone on the starship Von Braun, and immediately a sense of isolation hits extremely hard. It's quiet and dead, except for the things that are still wandering the halls trying to kill you. There's something deeply unsettling about walking to a space that clearly used to be alive, and realizing you're hearing echoes of people who just aren't there anymore. The audio logs are what really drive that home. Each one feels like a little piece of life that existed before it. They make the ship feel haunted, not just by monsters, but by memories. You can hear the fear, the regret, the humanity in those recordings. Voices in a space that they no longer occupy. And it gives the whole experience this tragic, ghostly weight that most games still don't really capture. What really surprised me though was just how deep the systems go. You start customizing your character, managing upgrades, hacking terminals, dabbling in psionics, and suddenly you realize this thing has a lot of layers to it. It's part horror, part RPG, and part immersive sim. And it's all woven together just so naturally that you don't really even notice how complex it is until you're already hooked. Every skill point feels like it matters, every bullet and every choice. And you can absolutely see where BioShock came from. It's the same exact DNA, it's just a bit rawer and clunkier.
Oh, that does a lot more damage now, so we're upgraded it. I'm out.
Then there's Shodan. She isn't just an antagonist, she's the voice that pulls you deeper into the web. And it's not a fear in the traditional sense, it's fascination. You want to hear what she'll say next, even as you realize she's manipulating you. She's part of what makes this game feel timeless, and that blend of menace and mystery still gets under your skin.
You to our mass, but you puzzle us. Why do you serve our mother?
And looking back now, what holds up the most isn't just the scares. It's the design depth. The way everything connects, from the story to systems, it's still impressive. System Shock 2 is one of the rare games that doesn't just want to frighten you. It wants to make you think, to listen, pay attention. It's unsettling and it feels lonely, and it's still one of the best examples of how horror and design can work together to create something truly unforgettable.
Hurry!
You just smacked me across the head. My purse, I don't know you.
The X-Files Resist or Serve is a really strange PS2 game, and it's a horror game that really could have only existed in the early 2000s. It was developed by Black Ops Entertainment, and it was published by Vivendi Universal in 2004. It was basically an attempt to turn the TV show's paranoia into a full-blown survival horror game.
You just killed this woman.
You can play as either Mulder or Scully, and each campaign tells its own version of each case. Mulder's path leans a lot more towards action and combat, while Scully's side focuses more on puzzles, autopsies, and investigations. But the big thing that really hits is just the novelty. Walking through those moody streets and hallways with the Mark Snow's score playing. If you're a big X-Files fan, it just feels right. It really nails that late night tension that the show was built on. And then hearing David Duchovny and Gillian Anderson come back for their roles, it does add a lot. Even if Duchovny's voice is not that great for voice acting. I wouldn't say it's better or worse than his work in Area 51. But it's not bad, it's just very him. And honestly, it kind of works for the tone. As far as the gameplay goes though, the thing is pure classic survival horror. It's fixed camera angles, tank controls, limited ammo, and keycard puzzles. It's clearly built in the Resident Evil mold, and for the most part, that style fits the X-Files. The awkward pacing and stiff movement actually makes the investigations feel a little bit more tense. That being said though, you can also tell where the budget ran out. Some of the textures are extremely rough, the systems feel half-finished, and the investigative elements barely really go anywhere. You can see the ambition, it just doesn't have the resources to fully pull it off. If anything, it makes you wish someone would take another shot at it one day. Maybe something closer to like LA Noire, but horror. I think that'd be super cool. The story itself feels like an episode though, starting with strange deaths in Colorado town and spiraling into alien conspiracies and secret facilities in Russia. It's got that perfect mix of small-town mystery and global weirdness that the show was famous for. Even with the clunky combat and data design, the atmosphere keeps it grounded, for the most part. You're never far from that feeling of creeping into something you shouldn't be seeing. And looking back, Resist or Serve is a lot more of a curiosity than a classic, but it's a fascinating one. It's not polished, it's not deep, but it does understand what made the X-Files special. It's eerie and nostalgic and full of that early 2000s charm that makes revisiting it worthwhile for fans. Flawed, definitely, but also kind of special in its own quiet, weird way.
Oh, we're bit. We're bit. Hold still, yeah. I don't like this any more than you do. You know what they say, pain is how we know we're still alive.
Mouthwashing is one of those indie games that doesn't try to scare you, it hurts you. It's extremely emotional and disorienting, but it's really beautiful in the most uncomfortable ways. It was developed by Wrong Organ, released in 2024. It's set on this crashed freighter drifting into deep space. You're trapped with a handful of other survivors, and things start to unravel pretty much immediately. It's not the kind of game where monsters jump out at you. It's more about the rot that builds inside the people who have already been broken. The immediate thing that stands out about this game is the visuals. It has that retro, low-poly look that you'd expect from a PS1 game, but it uses that style to make everything feel dreamlike almost. The timeline in it constantly shifts, so one moment you're in the aftermath of the crash, and the next you're thrown back into the days leading up to it. That time-jumping structure mixed with flashes of hallucinations, it really makes you feel lost in someone else's memory. And it really works. It keeps you disoriented, desperate to piece things together, and by the time you start understanding what's really happening, it's already over.
A revolutionary new dental hygiene product.
The crew dynamic adds another layer of tension also. There's this fragile mix of fear, denial, avoiding responsibility, and resentment that builds between everyone, and you start to care about them, even the ones who frustrate you, and that's part of what makes the story hit so hard. Jimmy's the main character, and he slowly becomes unbearable. The more you see him, the more you realize the entire situation is about the weight of responsibility, and what happens when someone refuses to carry it. And that's what lingers after the credits for me. Not the scary parts or not the space setting, but the symbolism. The guilt, the denial, the pain of realizing how much damage one person's inactions can cause. It's haunting in a completely different way than most horror games. Mouthwashing leaves you sitting there in silence when it's over, not because you're scared, but just crushed for how heavy it all feels. It's short, but it's extremely powerful, and honestly one of the most emotionally painful horror games I've played in a long time.
Be controller Jimmy now. As far as like game design goes, that's super cool. The camera shift there. I'm making Jimmy walk forward right here. Oh, there we go. We're gonna do that. Let's see if we did it. This is my first day. Burned the wrong body. Got possessed by the wrong demon. Sorry.
The Mortuary Assistant might be one of the scariest games ever made, and I just mean in general. Not because it's full of cheap tricks or endless jump scares, but because every single thing you do, it feels real. It's super grounded, the kind that makes your stomach twist because you know what's coming, but you still have to do it anyways. It was developed by Darkstone Digital and published by Dread XP. It came out in 2022, and it puts you in the shoes of Rebecca Owen. She's a newly certified mortician starting her night shift at the Riverfields Mortuary. The problem is, one of the bodies you're working on isn't dead in the normal sense, it's possessed, and that demon wants you. The thing that hits you first is just how immersive the embalming process is. Every step, draining fluids, wiring the jaw, inserting tubes, feels clinical and procedural, and that routine is what makes the horror work. You're doing a normal job in the middle of something deeply unnatural. And as the shift goes on, the reality around you starts to warp. You suddenly find yourself pulled into dreamlike spaces, reliving trauma, walking through places that shouldn't exist, before being dropped right back into the cold fluorescent light at the mortuary. That constant switch between normal and nightmare keeps you on edge the entire time. And Rebecca's story really stands out too. It isn't just about demons, it's about guilt, depression, and self-destruction. The game doesn't hold back either. There are some pretty intense scenes where she sees her own corpse hanging from the ceiling, hears voices whisper to her to kill herself, and it feels genuinely painful to witness. It's horror that comes from empathy, not just fear.
I just visit you. Don't you miss me? I brought you something.
That's a knife.
I thought maybe you could slit your wrist for me.
Mechanically, the possession system is really cool. You have to search for sigils, these little symbols, cross-reference a demonic database to identify the right house, and then narrow it down to a specific demon, and then figure out which body it's inhabiting. It's part puzzle and part psychological warfare. And the nights feel really long, they feel kind of exhausting, but kind of in a good way. You start to feel the toll of everything going on, every noise that makes you second guess what's real. And by the time it's over, what sticks with you isn't just the story, it's just the sheer terror of it all. The imagery in this game is brutal, the timing of the scares are perfect, and the atmosphere just never lets up. The Mortuary Assistant proves that you don't need a big budget to create dread. You just need honesty, patience, and the courage to stare death in the face and just keep working. I've never seen that one before. You're wrecked. Oregon Trail is such an extremely clever twist on a classic game. It takes that old school Oregon Trail formula, which I know everyone knows what Oregon Trail is. The one people my age maybe played as kids and our parents played in high school. It completely reimagines that and adds zombies to a survival road trip. You're still trying to make it across country, but instead of hunting buffalo and fixing broken wagons, you're managing fuel, ammo, and supplies while a plague of the undead follow you across every mile. What really surprised me is how much depth there is under this parody. It isn't just a joke game, it's a full-on survival sim. Every decision matters. You're constantly thinking of things like, do I have enough gas to make it to the next town? Should I trade a few bullets for some food, or repair the car with the last of my scrap, or trade it? And while you're juggling all that, you still have to decide when to scavenge, when to take on jobs, and when to risk another long stretch of road. Every system feeds into the next, and before you know it, you're completely hooked on just trying to stay alive one more day. It's really funny, too. The tone never really dips into dread or sadness or anything, never too much seriousness. It's all played with this dark, tongue-in-cheek humor that just works perfectly. Even when your friends die from dysentery or if they get bit and you have to shoot them yourself. It's less tragic and more, well, that's what I get for pushing my luck. That blend of comedy and challenge, it makes it way more replayable than you'd expect. The visuals tie it all together. That chunky pixel art look, it really nails the retro vibe for it. It feels exactly like something you'd find running on an old school computer in the 90s, but twisted into something so much stranger. And that's really what makes Oregon Trail special. It's nostalgic, clever, and genuinely challenging. It asks, how far can you make it this time? And before you know it, you're on run number 10, swearing you'll finally make it to the end this time.
He was a freeloader anyways. Squeeze through. I may get some disagreements with this because I know how a lot of people feel about remakes. But Dead Space to me is one of those remakes that feels exactly the way that you remember it, but looks and plays just better.
Motive Studios absolutely nailed it. It was released in 2023 for the PS5, Xbox Series X, and PC. It rebuilds the 2008 classic from the ground up while keeping almost everything that made the original so iconic. And somehow, it manages to make you feel like you're experiencing it for the first time again. The biggest thing for me is just how it feels. They didn't just modernize the controls, they refined them. Every movement, weapon, every moment of panic, it just feels amazing. It's smoother and more responsive, but it still carries that same heavy tension that the series was known for. And the combat is still extremely brutal, if not more so. The dismemberment system still forces you to stay calm under pressure, and the zero gravity sections feel a lot better and smoother now. I'll honestly never prefer clunkier controls just for nostalgia's sake. I think everybody should respect the old but embrace the new, and this remake does exactly that. What really pushes it over the edge though is the atmosphere. The lighting, the sound design, the way the ship creaks and breathes around you. It's perfect. You can hear Isaac's heartbeat racing when he sees something disturbing, or even when there's no enemies around. It's such a small detail, but it really connects you to him on a deeper level. And now that he actually talks, you can hear the fear and panic in his voice, and it makes it easier to channel that same feeling yourself. It's subtle, but for me it hits really hard. And then there's the visual details. There's a lot of really small things that people probably miss. When Isaac steps into the outer areas of the Ishimura, frost slowly builds up across his metal suit, and when he comes back inside, it starts to melt. The surface turns wet and shines under the lights, then dries as he moves on. It's so tiny, but it shows how much care went into making this world feel alive. And by the end, I just felt pure satisfaction with it. And honestly, I want Motive to keep going. Remake Dead Space 2, or make a Dead Space 4. Because if they can capture this level of detail and emotion again, it'll prove that great horror isn't about reinventing everything. It's about remembering what made it special in the first place.
Very big mechanical leap. The way the aiming here, the way the aiming works. Oh, did I mess up? I wasn't supposed to pick that up yet, was I? Oh god. Oh god, what'd I do? Yeah, spray him. Spray him.
Clock Tower on PS1 is a game that really caught me off guard. It was developed by Human Entertainment and released in '96. It's technically the second game in the series, a direct sequel to the original Clock Tower that came out on the Super Famicom. But when it was brought to the West, they just called this one Clock Tower, which confused me a bit, at first. I started it up expecting pixel art and sprites, but instead I got a 3D point-and-click horror game. And that's fine, that's my fault for not understanding which one it was. But, at first, I'll be honest, the game didn't really grab me. The slow pacing, the cursor controls, it felt clunky compared to other PS1 games I've played so far this month. But once the first real night hit me, when I started exploring, finding bodies, and hiding from the scissormen, something really clicked with it, and that's when I got it. It's not supposed to feel fast or fluid, it's supposed to make you feel powerless, and that's exactly what it does. The structure is actually pretty ambitious for the time. Depending on your choices, you can play as Jennifer Simpson or Helen Maxwell, each of their own scenario and multiple endings. And there's no combat at all, it's just exploration, puzzle solving, and surviving the scissorman. And when he shows up, you're in panic mode. You can hide, barricade doors, or just pray he gives up before your stamina runs out. That alone sets Clock Tower apart from most other survival horror games of the 90s, which were still focused on shooting or fighting back. Visually and tonally, it's clearly inspired by Italian horror. Dario Argento-style cinematography, long hallways, dramatic angles, and this creepy gothic energy that feels more like a film than a game. And I said that multiple times on stream. I said, this just feels like I'm watching a movie, which I think is really cool. That's one of the things that really pulled me in. That said, it doesn't quite stand out for atmosphere compared to some other games like Resident Evil or Silent Hill. It's effective, but it never fully hits that iconic PS1 horror level for me, personally. But still, once it pulled me in, I had a blast. There's a real charm to how deliberate everything feels. The pacing, the mystery, even the campy slasher tone. And by the end, I wasn't just enjoying it, I was really curious. It made me want to go back and play the whole series to see how this weird, stylish little horror experiment evolved. It might not be the scariest thing on the PS1, but Clock Tower 1996 is definitely one of the most fascinating. It's a time capsule. It's slow, strange, and completely its own thing.
Here, take this. Oh my god, it was it! Jesus! Hell yeah.
You're still holed up here, I see. What did you think of that guy, the one in the suit?
He's just doing his job.
Times are rough lately. Just one thing after another, am I right?
No, I'm Not a Human might be one of the most surreal horror games that I have ever played. It was developed by Trios Guys and published by Critical Reflex. It came out this year, in 2025, and it's basically a first-person psychological horror game about trust, identity, and paranoia. You're living in this dying world where the sun is going wild, and at night, these things called visitors come out, creatures that look human but aren't, essentially skinwalkers or doppelgangers. And your job is to decide who's safe to let in your house and who's going to kill you in your sleep. Because you have to invite people into your house. If a visitor comes to your house and you're alone, you'll die. So you have to keep people in there for your own protection. This concept hooked me instantly, but it's the presentation that really sold it. The whole thing feels like a fever dream, like you're stuck in this distorted nightmare where every face looks almost human, but not quite. And the visuals are extremely unsettling. A bunch of sharp angles and warped movements, like a bunch of sleep paralysis demons trapped in a conversation loop. And there's no jump scares or loud noises or anything. It's quiet, and it's this lingering discomfort of realizing you can't even trust your own instincts anymore. Every night you have to talk to a new guest, look them over, and decide if they're human. And that's where the game really gets psychological. You learn these tests to help identify visitors. Things like perfect white teeth, dirty fingernails, or red eyes. But the catch with that is, maybe that person just takes care of their teeth. Maybe they're just tired. You're making these life and death decisions based on the flimsiest logic, and it starts eating at you. It's like a moral version of Papers, Please, except the stakes are way more personal and way more disturbing. And the atmosphere ties it all together. The sound design's pretty minimal, but it's very heavy. You can hear the creak of a door or the stranger knocking, and that uneasy silence before you decide what to do. Every choice you make ripples through the story, leading to different endings, and the rules keep changing every night. That unpredictability, that creeping paranoia, it's what makes No I'm Not Human feel like something straight out of The Thing. You're constantly testing, doubting, and second-guessing yourself until it breaks you down. And when I stepped away from this one, it wasn't the scary stuff or the disturbing imagery that stuck with me. It was the moral weight. That feeling of guilt over the choices you made, and the faces you left outside. It's rare for a horror game to make me feel something like that, but this one did. It's a super surreal and haunting experience, one that's as psychologically heavy as it is visually disturbing.
You feel that? Change is haunting you. So am I. And now one of your ilk is deathless. All because of a word. One single word. But what word is it? You know who I mean, yes? Strange things happen around you.
I don't feel anything.
Must be tough. Sounds like you need help. Why don't we try something new? A gamble of sorts. If there are at least 2 of us inside your house, you'll open the door for me. Because dogs reside in their bodies now.
Typing of the Dead Overkill is a very strange and creative horror spin-off. It takes House of the Dead Overkill, that's a full-on grindhouse-style rail shooter, and it turns it into a typing game. Instead of pulling a trigger, you're hammering away at your keyboard trying to survive waves of zombies by typing words as fast as possible. What really sells it for me is the tone. The game doesn't try to be scary, not even for a second. It's a love letter to those old, low-budget exploitation movies from the 70s. That film grain, the over-the-top gore, and just ridiculous dialogue. It all feels perfectly intentional. Every line delivery sounds like it came straight off a VHS you'd find buried in a thrift store. And it absolutely nails that sleazy grindhouse energy. When you're playing it, it somehow manages to feel both tense and goofy at the same time. You're trying to stay alive while typing these absurd, random phrases that make no sense. And that's the fun of it. You'll be in the middle of a serious moment, the screen's shaking, the blood's flying everywhere, and the word you have to type is something like banana hammock or existential dread. It's chaos, but in the best way. And the game also doesn't feel like it's poking fun at horror, it's celebrating it. It exaggerates all the tropes, the voiceover narration, the cheesy one-liners, the dramatic camera cuts. It feels like the developers just wanted to make something loud, ridiculous, and self-aware, and I think they completely succeeded in that. I played it by myself, and honestly, I think it's probably the best way. The standard House of the Dead shooters is great in co-op, but typing side by side probably wouldn't hit the same as that. Sitting there alone, hearing the music kick in, and seeing a horde of zombies come towards you while you're trying to type something stupid as fast as possible. That's where the magic is. And it actually manages to stay engaging. The typing keeps you on edge, and the tone keeps you laughing. And even after a few levels, you're just curious what ridiculous phrase it's going to throw at you next. So when I think of Typing of the Dead Overkill, it's the writing that sticks with me the most. It's crude and dumb, and it's exactly what it needs to be. You can tell the developers had fun making it, and that fun carries through to the player. And at the end of the day, it's definitely not scary, it's not deep, but it's a rare case where a horror spin-off fully understands its own ridiculousness and leans into it. It's creative and loud and completely unhinged, and that's exactly why Typing of the Dead Overkill is fun.
I feel the need for speed.
Oh god. Oh god. Ah, oh god! No! He does an insta-kill? Jesus Christ.
Cry of Fear is one of those weird indie horror games that really just shouldn't work as well as it does, and somehow it still hits really hard. It was made by Team Psyscholar, and it was originally a Half-Life mod, and then they eventually turned it into a full game back in 2013. You play as Simon Hendrickson. He's a 19-year-old guy dealing with trauma, depression, and this collapsing sense of reality. The whole thing starts after a car crash, and from there, it just kind of gets darker and more surreal throughout the game. And then, at the very start, the things that stood out to me was the visuals and the atmosphere. It's running on the old Half-Life engine, but somehow feels more oppressive and claustrophobic than most of the modern horror games. Everything just feels off and wrong. There's this constant tension, like the world itself's trying to swallow you whole. The pacing, though, is really 50-50 for me. Some areas flow really well, but others, like the apartment section, can be extremely confusing. I spent over an hour in there, lost on stream, before finally looking at a guide. And I wasn't alone. Turns out that's a common experience. The apartments is really just bad level design. So the level design in general can absolutely kill the momentum sometimes. But when the game's firing on all cylinders, it's incredible. The game ties its mechanics directly to Simon's mental state. Your health item is a syringe, and every time you use it, he sticks it into his arm, where you can already see bruised track marks. So I think that's a pretty big design choice for a character. There's even an enemy that takes control of Simon's mind and tries to make him kill himself, forcing you to mash buttons while he's crying, panicking, and raising a gun to his head.
Oh god! She just made her kill ourselves.
It's extremely uncomfortable, but that's the point. The horror isn't just in the monsters, it's what Simon's going through. As far as gameplay goes, it's extremely difficult and clunky, but I feel like that could be intentional. The limited inventory, the flashlight that takes up one of your hands, it makes everything feel slow and heavy, but human. Simon's not a soldier. He's scared and shaking and probably going through withdrawal. And that comes across in every moment. I didn't beat it on Steam, but what's really stuck with me was how raw it feels. It's extremely scary, but it's also deeply sad and personal. Even with all the rough edges and clunkiness, Cry of Fear is one of those indie games that really earns its reputation. It's not just trying to scare you, it's trying to make you feel something. And when it hits, it really hits hard.
It's juicy in here. Oh, these guys are cool.
Doom 3 is one of those kinds of games that completely changes how a series plays. And whether you love that or hate that shift, you can't deny how ambitious it was. It was developed by id Software and came out in 2004, and it was built on the brand new id Tech 4 engine, which at the time was absolutely mind-blowing. But instead of that fast-paced, demon-slaying chaos that Doom was known for, this one slowed everything way down. It turned Doom into a full-on first-person horror game. And as a kid, it was one of the few games I literally just could not play because it scared me too much. Even now, the atmosphere in it still holds up. The lighting, the sound designs, the shadows bouncing everywhere. It's one of the best examples of early 2000s horror atmosphere done right. But it definitely doesn't feel like classic Doom. You're not this unstoppable hero ripping through hell. You're vulnerable, isolated, and constantly waiting for something to jump out of the dark. It's less Metal Album cover and more Haunted Mars base. And then the flashlight mechanic in the original version. It's genius and frustrating all at once. You can't hold a weapon and the flashlight at the same time, so you're forced to pick between visibility or survival. And in a game this dark, that tension really adds a ton of fear, even if most people didn't like it. They actually removed it for the BFG edition re-release, so you can shoot while holding the light, which honestly changes the whole vibe. The enemy design was another standout for me. They took those classic Doom demons and ran them through a horror filter. They're twisted, more realistic, and way more disturbing. Every encounter feels deliberate, like they wanted you to see these things up close and feel very uncomfortable. The pacing is a lot slower, but it fits for the kind of game they were trying to make. It's something more cinematic and immersive, with voice logs and terminals filling in lore. But what really sticks to me about Doom 3 isn't just the fear, it's the memories I had with it. This was an original Xbox era game, where people actually still talked over microphones. I remember playing Doom 3 co-op online with a random guy I'd never met. We played through the entire game together, and I ended up being friends with him. And you just don't really get that much anymore. And looking back, Doom 3 might not be the Doom everyone wanted, but it's still one of the boldest horror shooters ever made, in my opinion. It's dark and heavy and atmospheric, and for me, it's a reminder of how games used to connect people through fear, curiosity, and a little bit of bravery.
Have a grenade. Have a grenade. That took care of him. I'll it behind me. That didn't work. That didn't work, Ghost Bastion. Oh. Oh, God. That's our ankle. Oh, Sebastian, it ain't good, brother. Go.
The Evil Within is one of those games that really just hits all the right notes for me. It came out in 2014 from Tango Gameworks, and it was directed by Shinji Mikami, the one that we all know and love. Same guy who created Resident Evil. So when it dropped, the expectations were extremely high. And thankfully, it really does feel like a spiritual return to that old school survival horror style. But what I love the most about it isn't just that it's scary, it's how it captures the feeling of your mind slowly falling apart. You play as Sebastian Castellanos, a detective who ends up trapped inside the collapsing nightmare world called STEM, a kind of mental network that fuses people's minds together. And as the story unfolds, reality keeps breaking in half around you. One second you're in a hospital, and then the next you're waist deep in blood with something crawling towards you. That whole theme of spiraling insanity instantly hooked me. As far as the gameplay goes, it's the perfect blend of tension and control. You have stealth, shooting, and crafting all working together. But the resources always feel tight. It gives you just enough ammo to scrape by, but not enough to make you comfortable or feel relaxed. And then there's this light RPG system built around those green upgrade jars. You use them to improve everything from Sebastian's stamina, his health, and to his weapons. And it adds this layer of strategy that most horror games don't have. There's also a random locker system. You find keys throughout the game, and you get to choose which box to open. And they have random rewards in them, like ammo or upgrade points. It makes exploration feel rewarding without breaking the tension. And as for the monsters, they're all pretty disturbing in their own way. But Laura, she's the big standout for me. She's this long-haired, crawling nightmare that instantly reminded me of The Grudge, which used to terrify me when I was younger. I'm pretty desensitized to most horror at this point, but something about that combination of movement and the sound she makes, it all gets under my skin. And by the time I finished The Evil Within, what really stuck with me most wasn't just fear, it was the story and the mechanics. It's got that old-school survival horror DNA, but built with a modern polish and depth. It's messy, surreal, and sometimes chaotic, but really in the best way. And for me, that collapsing mind atmosphere mixed with all those small design details makes it one of the most interesting horror games from that era.
Oh wait, am I supposed to get away from him? Okay. Yep, wasn't supposed to touch him. Wasn't supposed to touch him. Should be fine. Oh, zombie, 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 zombie! Oh, that didn't work. Go, 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 oh god. Go, go.
Project Zomboid is the greatest survival game ever made. I will stand and die on that hill. It was developed by IndieStone, and it's been in early access since 2013. And it's a true long-term project that's still evolving today. It's still in early access. It's an isometric open-world survival horror sim. It's set in the fictional Knox County. It's a quarantine zone somewhere in Kentucky after a zombie outbreak. And it opens with one of the most honest lines you'll ever see in a game. This is how you died. Because you're not meant to survive in this game. Each character you make is going to die. It just depends on when. So opening that, it's showing the recap of how you died. And I just love that so much. I have hundreds of hours in this game. So I came in pretty prepared. Or at least I thought I was. On the stream, I had spawned in a familiar town and found a four-wheeler right away. And I hopped on it and I started driving towards the building that I wanted to turn into my base. But even when you know what you're doing, Zomboid has a way of humbling you. I swerved to miss a zombie and hit a mailbox and went flying off the ATV, barely escaped getting grabbed before I even made it to my destination. But once I got there, I did what I usually do. I cleared every room one by one, dragging the bodies outside so they wouldn't rot and make me sick. Then I started organizing, food in one corner, weapons in another, books, crafting, mechanical supplies. They all have their own spot. That's the heart of Zomboid's design. It's not about flashy combat or scripted missions. It's about slow, methodical survival where every little decision matters. Later that night, I drove out to look for a box truck, something with better storage,
Darth Vader.
and ended up way out of town, surrounded by more zombies than I expected. It was pitch black, my sight cone was barely visible, and the tension was crazy. I fought off what I could, I got back to my car, and I barely made it home. But moments like that are why Zomboid still feels like a real survival horror game. It's no jump scares or cinematic tricks. It's just pure dread through systems and consequences. The detail in this game is mind-blowing. If you break a window wrong and get glass stuck in your hand, you need tweezers to remove it, disinfect the wound, and keep rewrapping the bandage before it gets dirty or infected. That's just one very small example. And that level of simulation runs through everything: cooking, mechanics, farming, mental health, even boredom. Add in mods and the depth becomes nearly endless. I have probably 400 mods in this game. For me, Project Zomboid is more than just a survival game. It's a hyper-focused engine. It's a world where you can live in for hours, setting a single goal and slowly, obsessively working towards it. Whether you're learning to cook full meals ingredient by ingredient, or tearing apart a car down to its brakes, there's always another system to master. It's like a survival version of The Sims, except death is permanent and the world's falling apart around you. And The Sims was actually a major inspiration for the visuals for this game. But after all these years, Zomboid still stands as the most realistic, punishing, and addictive survival sim out there. And easily one of my favorite games of all time. Tormented Souls is a fantastic example of an indie studio bringing back that classic survival horror spirit. It was developed by Dual Effect with Abstract Digital and published by P-Cube, and came out in 2021. And it wears its inspirations proudly. It has fixed camera angles, tight hallways, limited saves, and super complex puzzles. It's all here, but it's done with a modern sense of polish. And the first thing that stood out to me with this was the camera angles. It's instantly familiar if you grew up on games like Resident Evil or Silent Hill. The way each shot is framed, the slow pacing, and the super clunky inventory management. It's old school survival horror through and through, and honestly, the game looks fantastic also. The lighting is what really sells it for me. It's dark and moody and cinematic, without really feeling cheap. And the puzzles are amazing. They hit a great balance. There's a lot of backtracking, but it never feels like filler, and each riddle or combination lock feels intentional. Like the developers actually cared about how those classic games made you think instead of just making you wander aimlessly. It's clearly inspired by the past, but it doesn't feel like it's just copying it. And the atmosphere, the opening bathtub scene, which I couldn't play on stream, but if you played the game you know what I'm talking about, where Caroline's waking up in pain, missing an eye. It's unsettling without being too over the top. The game doesn't quite hook you as fast as a Resident Evil intro, but it pulls you into the tone and the mystery. The lighting does a lot of heavy lifting here. It really amps up that atmosphere overall. And the enemy designs are super cool too, easily some of the most disturbing ones that I've seen in an indie horror game. Even though I didn't finish it, Tormented Souls really left a strong impression. It's not just a tribute act, it feels like its own thing. The team clearly loves the genre and understands what made those classics special. And if you're someone who misses that mix of tension, puzzle solving, and atmosphere that defined early survival horror, this is probably one of the best modern takes on it.
Is the head here?
Wow.
Wow.
No, I didn't.
Did you get munched?
No, I didn't.
No, she pushed me into the back.
No, I didn't.
Repo is one of those games that reminds you that horror can still be lighthearted fun. It's an indie co-op horror game developed by SemiWorld, and it dropped earlier this year in 2025 on Steam. Up to 6 players head into monster-infested zones to retrieve valuable loot and make it back alive. It's simple on paper and absolute chaos in practice. The first thing that stood out to me was how scary it could be. Even though the characters themselves look ridiculous, I got jump scared a ton during the stream. 1 second we're laughing and having fun, and then out of nowhere something lunges out of the dark and kills one of us. Then there's just the co-op madness in general. Getting shoved into a pit by my teammate Nautica, because she's a murderer, or carefully carrying an expensive item together only to drop it and completely destroy it.
No!
It's the perfect mix of being tense and just loud and funny. The physics make everything unpredictable. When you're hauling something heavy and hear a monster creeping towards you down the hallway, the panic hits really hard. It's never really frustrating though. It's just the right kind of chaos that keeps everyone yelling and laughing at once.
Did you just hit me with
I
a
think
tooth?
that was justified, yes.
For the atmosphere though, Repo actually delivers a bit more tension than you'd expect. It's not on the same visceral level as something like Silent Hill, but it still knows how to get under your skin. The lighting, the sound design, and the way the enemies move, it all builds this uneasy energy even when things are silly on the surface. But at its core, Repo isn't trying to be pure horror. It's a chaotic comedy game with horror mixed in. The fear is real enough to keep you on edge, but the real hook is in the teamwork and the inevitable mistakes that makes just every run super fun and unique. Compared to other co-op horror games, it sits a lot closer to Lethal Company than Phasmophobia, I feel. Phas is slow, investigative, and actually pretty scary, but Repo thrives on momentum. It's the kind of game where half the tension comes from your friends, not the monsters, and that's what makes it so much fun. Go check out Nautica Games and Stickeasy also. They're who I played with here, and they have YouTube channels as well, so go give them some love.
They tricked me. Even though I knew it was a trick.
Please don't run over the
mean
duck.
to me on
You're getting so close.
As long as you have this, I'll keep you alive. You must find the Sorceress's Council. They will help you.
Why are you helping me?
If there's no more dead, then I'm out of a job.
Maximo Ghosts to Glory isn't a pure horror game, but it definitely fits that Halloween vibe I was looking for, and I also just wanted to play it. But it was developed by Capcom and released on the PS2 back in 2002. It's a 3D spin-off of Ghosts and Goblins. It's full of undead enemies, haunted castles, and that classic mix of challenge and charm. The first thing that really stands out is the platforming. You can tell right away that this is an old school kind of game. There's real tricky jumps and timing and traps waiting just off screen. It's extremely hard, but it's not unfair, and while it's not quite as brutal as Ghosts and Goblins, it still demands focus. The combat feels great once you get the hang of it. The sword swings have weight, enemies hit really hard, and dodging through 3D spaces has that satisfying rhythm Capcom nailed in this era. It's challenging without ever crossing into frustrating territory, which is rare for this style of game. Visually, I think it holds up shockingly well. That cartoonish gothic style is something we don't really see much anymore. It's stylish and fun, and it never takes itself too seriously. It's just pure PS2 era energy with a ton of personality. And then there's the armor system, probably the most iconic part of the game. Every time you take damage, Maximo loses a piece of armor until he's running around in his boxers. It's funny, sure, but it also adds real tension. There were moments where I was deep into a level, one hit from death, and just trying to survive in my underwear, while every enemy swing was making me tense up. Even today, Maximo totally holds up. It makes me wish we still got more games like this, focused, stylish action platformers that don't try to be anything more than just fun. It's spooky and clever, and I think it's one of the most underrated games Capcom ever made.
8 away from 5,000 subs.
Against Achilles' army.
What's the kiss do? Let's get a kiss. Oh my god! Jesus Christ!
Darkwood is a masterclass in how to build atmosphere. It was developed by Acid Wizard Studio. It's a top-down survival horror game set in a twisted forest somewhere in Eastern Europe. And right from the start, it hits you with this feeling of just total isolation. It isn't flashy or cinematic in any way, but somehow it gets under your skin almost faster than anything else. The top-down perspective and sound design work together perfectly. You would think seeing everything from above would make it less scary, but it's the complete opposite. The lighting only shows what's in your cone of vision, so you're constantly imagining what's out there in the dark. The imagination becomes the real horror. The atmosphere in this game is perfected. It's eerie and grounded and just unbelievably tense. When it's nighttime, that tension turns into panic. At first you hear a few bumps or footsteps outside, and then it escalates. There's wood creaking and windows breaking, sounds circling your house.
Oh, it's red outside. It's red outside. Oh, Jesus. We did it!
The audio builds all night until you're genuinely anxious, hoping the barricades hold. It's the rare kind of horror that makes you feel like you're actually surviving. And the gameplay loop ties into that perfectly. You explore during the day, scavenge what you can, and try to prepare for nightfall. Every item you find is super random and weird, like a tire or some string. Everything feels small, but they make your upgrades matter when you figure them out. It's brutally difficult and completely unforgiving, but setting small goals like reaching a certain building or finding one key resource, it makes each day feel like progress. The visuals and sound are what sell it though. That's what completely sets it apart. Darkwood proves you don't need a big budget or a first-person camera to make something terrifying. It's what you don't see that eats at you, and by the end, it really does feel like one of the best examples of how to build tension without relying on jump scares. Even years after its release, Darkwood stands tall as one of the greatest modern indie horror games ever made. It's haunting, creative, and completely unforgettable.
Eat the ghost. This burger's definitely a floor burger now.
Now, I know I'm going to have some disagreements with this one, but I really think the RE2 Remake is a great example of how to modernize a classic without losing its soul. Just bear with me. As you all know, it was developed and published by Capcom in 2019, and it rebuilds the 1998 original from the ground up using the RE engine. And right from the opening, I personally feel like it shows there's a lot of care that went into it. The first thing that hits you is the visuals. Seeing those iconic set pieces, the gas station, the Raccoon City Police Department, completely reimagined, to me is incredible. Everything is soaked in rain and grime and tension. It's familiar, but it feels new again in a way that actually honors the original. The over-the-shoulder camera is probably the biggest change, and honestly, I really like it. Yes, I'm aware it takes away from some of the fixed angle suspense, but it also gives you a new kind of intensity. Being closer to the action makes the horror feel more personal. Running through the RPD in that perspective just feels good. Both styles have their pros and cons, but this one pulls you in and never really lets go. The atmosphere and sound design are top tier. You feel like you've walked into the aftermath of the world ending. The hallways covered in blood and ripped apart bodies everywhere, and the distant moans down the hallway. The sense of survival and uncertainty is constant, and it really nails that classic Resident Evil tone of barely holding it together. Then there's Mr. X, which I can agree, this wasn't the best part. He's pretty scary at first. Hearing his footsteps follow you down the hallways instantly raises your blood pressure. But over time, his cool factor wears off a bit. In the original, you could fight him and get rewards. Here, you can only stun him, which makes some sections feel a bit more tedious than tense. I get the idea with him, always being hunted, but having to loop around the entire station just to finish the puzzle, it can drag a little bit. But even with that, in my opinion, the remake is phenomenal. It looks amazing, plays great, and perfectly balances nostalgia with modern design. The biggest gripe I have with it is how the A and B scenarios were handled. In the original, they felt like two distinct perspectives. Here, they're just a bit more streamlined, missing some of that depth. But still, it's easily one of the best remakes ever made. And I really wish Capcom would bring back the dang giant spiders. We've not had a giant spider in any of the modern games. I want my giant spiders. Cronos: The New Dawn was the best way I could think of to close out the month. It's a game that I've been wanting to play all year, and I just haven't had a chance to get it. And it's actually the first one I bought specifically for the channel, using YouTube money, since I'm making that now somehow. That alone made this one feel special to me. I could have ended with something expected like Resident Evil or Silent Hill, but I wanted to stay true to what this channel's become. Just playing what I feel like playing.
So cool.
Jumping in for the first time, the first thing that hit me was confusion, to be honest. It took a while to really understand what was going on, or what this world even was. But the atmosphere, that landed immediately. It really nails that grimy, greasy sci-fi tone I love. That Event Horizon, Alien, Warhammer 40k. It's that kind of world where everything feels heavy and industrial and just a little bit wrong. The Traveler's suit, the person you play as, it perfectly sells that. It's clunky and metallic and full of tubes, like it's barely keeping you alive. It's not sleek or cool, it looks uncomfortable, and I love that. And once I started to get the hang of things, I realized just how much this game leans into horror over action. Everything about it is slow and deliberate, from the movement to combat to inventory management. You don't just run and gun here, you have to plan what you carry. You start with so little space that I joked about it being less than Chris's in Resident Evil 1. You can hold a weapon, a bit of ammo, some health, and maybe one extra item if you're lucky at the start. It really forces you to think, and when you fight, it's super tense also. Every weapon is heavy as hell. It's like swinging a sledgehammer. Especially when you're charging a shot, and you can't just hold and line it up either. It auto-fires once the charge is done, so you're constantly adjusting, trying to time it just right so you can line up the shot while the monsters are still running towards you. It's heavy and extremely stressful, and exactly how a sci-fi horror shooter should feel.
There's a bunch of them. Oh, I killed both of them. Hell yeah.
The world itself is pure desolation. That's the word that kept coming up in my mind on the stream. Everything feels empty, but in a haunting way.
Oh my god.
There's metal corridors and ruins and just twisted technology and these anomalies floating everywhere. The Steelworks area in particular blew me away. It's massive and it's beautiful.
I've reached Sector A11. The Steelworks. Proceeding to the...
And I had played this for 7 hours on stream. I barely scratched the surface. From what I read, the full game's over 20 hours long, which is wild for a horror game. But it lines up with Bloober, because their Silent Hill 2 remake was extremely long also.
But that's a fast... Oh, maybe not.
There it is.
There's one on the wall there, too. I wonder what those are.
But the sound design deserves a shout out too. You'll hear these walls covered in organic material breathing, like literally breathing. You'll walk through a corridor and hear gurgling or movement, and you won't know if it's just the walls breathing or something waiting for you in the dark. That uncertainty, that unease it gives you, it makes the game work. I didn't want to stream all the way to the end that night I played it, because we were already up to like 4 a.m., but I just kept pushing further because I had to know what was going on. The mystery of the story pulled me in, and the pacing never dragged at all. If it keeps that momentum all the way through, it might end up being one of my favorite horror releases of the year. It's already a strong contender for being a top game in general for me. But honestly, that's what made it perfect for the finale for Jake's 31 Days of Horror. It wasn't just another scary game, it represented what this whole month was about. Curiosity, discovery, and sticking with something because you love it. When that stream ended, I felt everything at once. A bit of pride, relief, exhaustion, happiness. I looked back at the start of the month and realized how much the channel's grown, and how alive it's starting to feel. It's been a long, exhausting month. But closing it with Cronos the New Dawn, it felt right. It's dark and heavy and unsettling, and it's exactly the kind of world I love getting lost in. Sitting here after 31 straight nights, it's really hard to even wrap my head around what this month was. When I went live on that first day, I really didn't know what to expect. I was excited, I've streamed before, but I didn't think it would turn into this. The first stream had a few people pop in, some names that I'd see sometimes in other streams. The chat wasn't that active, and I figured that was how most of the month was probably going to go. But I told myself I was going to finish this no matter what, even if I was the only one here. Now fast forward to the end of the month. The second I went live, I already knew that I'd have people waiting to hop in. People I talked to every night for a whole month. That alone made it worth it, because what started as just me streaming horror games turned into something that actually felt alive. A community started forming right in front of me. It wasn't just me talking to chat anymore, people were talking to each other, and that's when I realized this wasn't just 31 nights of horror, it was 31 nights of connection. There were nights I were exhausted, nights I didn't feel well, nights where my full-time job had already drained me before I even started streaming. But I never skipped a single day, and that to me is one of the biggest accomplishments I've had creatively. Because even when it got hard, even when I was tired and frustrated, I kept showing up to it. And that consistency, that promise I made to myself, became the foundation of something bigger. This event reminded me that I already have everything I need to make this channel something massive. It's not about luck or algorithms or waiting for a break. It's about time, it's about patience, it's about showing up every single day, even when it's uncomfortable. Because one day, someone's going to see some obscure old game and think, I wonder if Jake's done a video on this. That's what I'm trying to build. Not trends or shortcuts, just a real archive, something that lasts. And I think that's why this month hit me so hard. Because it wasn't just about the games, it was about proving to myself that I could take on something huge. Something people literally were telling me was insane. And I didn't just finish it, I made something meaningful out of it. I've had creators with channels 5 times my size tell me this idea was too much work, but I did it anyway. And that's what makes me proud. Because when you really push through the exhaustion, the long hours and the nights that no one's paying attention to, that's when you realize who you really are as a creator. When the last stream ended, it really hit me. Accomplishment, relief, pride, exhaustion, just sitting there thinking I actually did it. 31 days straight, 31 games. And one of the most alive months this channel has ever had. The Discord's been going insane, there's new faces joining all the time, and people are saying that they'll miss the daily streams. That kind of connection doesn't come from numbers, it comes from presence. And that's what this month was, presence and community. If someone asked me a year from now what Jake's 31 Days of Horror meant, I'd tell them that it was the start of an event. The month where the save room stopped being just me, and it started belonging to everyone. Because that's exactly what it became. So to everyone who joined the streams, even for one night, thank you. You made this month something I'll never forget, and it's not the end. This is the first chapter of something I'll try to do every year. Because if this event proved anything, it's that we can build something real together. Even with the daily streams gone for now, the save room's still here. I'll still be streaming occasionally, and we'll still have the videos. And next year, when October rolls around again, we'll boot them back up daily.
I can live with that part, Mr. Bones.
But if you've made it to the end of this very long video, I really appreciate you. I've never made a video like this, so I really hope you liked it. But after this, we have a big video coming, back to Resident Evil, and one of the biggest games in the world, Resident Evil 4. So you all get excited for that one. But as always, I'll talk to y'all later.
I panicked shot